I don't think the Houston Texans understand how to win a football game like this. I think there's just a big difference in class of coaching staffs and in players here, and I recognize it right away.
Let's start the Texans talk with the most important aspects of the game. Okay, we'll go around the room. I'll start. Offensive line play. Just awful. The pressure rate, the sack rate against a team that is not good against rushing the passer. And they just, I mean, it's something that's got to be addressed this off. It's got to be addressed. I mean, coaching-wise and player-wise, it's got to be addressed.
For me, the problem was two terrible decisions by DeMeco Ryans. You're right on the offensive line stuff, and there's about 4 things. But for me, it was 2 atrocious decisions by DeMeco Ryans. It really showed a lack of experience in these situations. To try it's 6-3, and you try a 55-yard field goal in sub-freezing temperature where the ball cannot compress and get distance. In wind, you're down 6-3 in what is clearly going to be a defensive-minded game where you need to play field position, and you don't punt. You give them that field position, and then they go down and score a touchdown, and you're playing behind after that. I mean, that was absolutely a mindless decision by DeMeco, and all I'm going to do is chalk it up to a lack of experience. But then in the fourth quarter, he does it again. On a 4th and 10, they decide to go for it from the 40-yard line, down 8. There's still plenty of time left in the game. There's about 10 minutes to go. And instead of punting and letting your defense play where you had outgained them by 100 yards, instead of just punting, you take a 16-yard sack. By the way, the offensive line couldn't block anyone in the fourth quarter. So you think you're going to be able to get off a pass that can go 10 yards with them mugged up and ready to bring 6? No, of course not. And CJ wasn't getting rid of the ball quick, so of course you're going to take a sack. 16-yard sack. The defense stood, but then they punted, put you in a hole. You go 3 and out, and the game was over. And, I mean, I just thought DeMeco, of all the things, my personal issue I have is DeMeco made 2 really, really bad decisions in a game that should have been about field position and not losing the game. Dell?
I can't get past the offensive line. I know John already said it, but the fact that it's been a problem all year, Shaq Mason isn't good. You bring Shaq Mason back so he can be awful again. They through what was 19 games in, I guess, 20 weeks, they didn't find any answers, and it got exposed in their final quarter of the season to a point where you couldn't even operate. So I think they got a real issue because how are they getting off some of these guys that they invested in? I keep talking about it. You move Titus Howard to guard. Are you going to pay a left guard that type of money, or are you going to say, you know what, Blake Fisher ain't ready for this moment. We're going to move Titus back to right tackle, and now your second-round pick is a swing tackle for another season? They got questions, and we'll get into some of the other things, but I don't know how that can continue. The offensive line coach likely gone. But personnel's the bigger problem for me. Because you can go get a guy who understands and maybe teaches better, but your personnel, you got problems there too.
I don't think you're a coach away. I think it's both. I really do.
He has to be gone. I mean, it's not even a question. He has to, and I hate that. You just can't. I hate to fire coaches and whatnot, but the incompetence of that offensive line, especially on stunts all season long. And if you're not good, then you just got to move on. You just got to move on, and you got to try to get better. It's got to be the players got to play better, but the coach has to be better too. And some of the players are going to get fired too. Some of the offensive linemen, the refs, they were definitely a factor. You can't tell me those 2 roughing the Mahomes through roughs and the hip drop tackle, the inner pass interference.
Well, okay, you said hip drop. For those who don't know, the non-hip drop on Dalton Schultz early in the game, right?
Right. Where he was, there was a
clearly
hip drop.
A hip drop. Although they're not calling it. They almost never call it what we found is they'll fine it, but they almost don't ever call it anymore.
Well, they need
this
to call.
year.
They needed to call. Why would you not call it when it's a penalty?
I don't know, but they said it early in the year. Like we were asking why there weren't hip drops early in the year, and I remember the referees coming out, or there was an article that said they're less likely to call it and more likely to fine it after the fact. But it was clearly a hip drop, but they just, I don't know, they just don't call it.
That's not a Chiefs thing. That's an NFL thing where they're just not calling that for whatever
wait a minute,
reason.
but if it's a penalty and you're going to get fined for it, but you're not going to call it in the game, that's incompetence by the referees.
It's been that way all year.
I understand that.
They don't call
but
it
it
right.
shouldn't be that way.
No,
it shouldn't be that way.
we agree with you. We're just saying it is not a Chiefs referee thing as much as it's been the league just. I don't know what they put it in and they don't ever call it. I don't know.
And then, but the two on Mahomes, it's out of control. I mean, everybody in the world knows it now.
World.
No, well, they pulled out Walt Anderson, and he was like, I think he was on your network, NFL, and he goes, nope, penalties.
Okay, so the first one, Patrick did a great job of selling it. He's become a wrestling heel who just sells stuff. That's all he does. And I thought, oh, man. Well, at first I didn't know why he got the penalty. We didn't see the action. Then I saw the replay from behind, like, hit him in the head. Then you see the replay from in front, and you're like, wait a minute. Wait a minute. And then whoever it was that was on the broadcast said, well,
not him. Whoever that's a different. They're expert on ESPN. But, yeah,
whoever was on the broadcast said, well, you can see right there touches. So technically it's no, technically nothing. That was not. He didn't launch. It was a face mask. Get out of here.
That's what Walt Anderson said.
It was below the face mask.
They showed a when they were doing the compilation
the face match touched.
At the end of the third quarter, they showed a compilation of all the issues that went against the Texans, and they showed an angle that they had not shown before. For some reason, they pulled it out then, and the face mask did touch, but
it touches, but it's not.
Whatever. Yeah.
But I mean, come on now. That wasn't enough. The other one where Mahomes waits and waits and waits and then ducks down and two Texans collide head to head, and that's 15. I mean, and John, what I found not disturbing, but I guess enlightening. I guess I already knew this, but I didn't really know it. Everybody across the landscape, number one, hates the Chiefs and wants them to lose. And number two, this refereeing thing with the Chiefs is like a known entity and a big problem for people, for former players, coaches, former coaches, announcers, media analysts, everybody across the board says this is just terrible. And the broadcasters, who was on the broadcast?
It was Aikman.
Yeah, Aikman. And Aikman thought some of these calls were terrible. He thought Pat Mahomes doing this crap. Aikman's not in favor of the stuff that Pat Mahomes does with the flopping. I mean, he's the Manu Ginobili of quarterbacks now. But
when the falling out of bounds and flailing his arms, I mean, goodness, call a flop on him. Call the flop on him.
Simulation.
But,
we get red cards in soccer for that.
Yellow cards.
Dell, you mentioned Will Anderson, and Will Anderson said they were penalties. Well,
no, Walt, the ex-referee Walt Anderson said they were penalties.
Oh, yeah, Walt Anderson. I thought you said Will Anderson.
No.
Walt. Here's what Will Anderson had to say. It was a lot like what CJ said. It was a lot like what Joe Mixon said. It was a lot like what D'Amico said.
We'll hear from all of them. Don't worry.
All of them. And here's Will Anderson on the refereeing.
He has kept this organization, his team, all year, man. He has blessed us and favored us tremendously, man. And I just got to give all glory to him. And we knew it was going to be us against the refs going into this game. And, I talked to you guys early this week. And I was just saying, we got to go out there and we got to do us better. And, in some instances we didn't do that, in some instances we did. So we just got to keep going, man. Next offseason, get the guys together, man. And, everybody just coming together and just keep building that team chemistry and get past this hump.
That's bad for the league, Lance. It's bad for the league that everybody knows, and it's universal. I mean, I watched shows. I heard different shows. They're all saying, "Are you kidding me with the Mahomes calls now?"
Okay. Let's make sure we get Teddy Bruschi. Because Teddy had something a little different. I don't know. Do you have that, Del?
I've grabbed it. I have to
make
sure it's ready to go.
We'll have it in the next segment because we'll keep on with this because I'm sure this is going to be the hot topic. Although I think that for me, the penalties, and I think you're the same based on the way you started the show, John, the penalties deserve a conversation. It's part of the conversation. It's not the whole conversation.
No.
And I think I don't love that your player admits we knew we were going up against the refs. He'll be fine for that. Whatever, it's his money. But honestly, if there's somebody who's going to say something like that, it's going to be on the defense side of the ball because they did their job.
What?
They did a great job, other than Aziz Al-Shayer, who didn't find 87 the entire game.
How in the world is he so open every?
It's
that
unbelievable.
was the next one for me, and then the one after that's so important is how do you set an NFL record for most 100 yards more than your opponent and no turnovers. And 49-0. Is it the same old Texans? Is that it? I mean, they find a way. See, the difference in the two organizations, we saw this all year with Kansas City. You find a way to win, and then with the Texans, you find a way to lose. I mean, that's the mentality that's got to get out of that locker room.
Yeah, you don't know how to win yet. And,
you don't know.
And let's let Teddy Bruschi. You're not going to love all this. Some of what he says, I think there's some truth. Then I don't love the last part. But I want you to listen to Teddy Bruschi. There's Texans fans that are really pissed off about what he said here. But I want you to listen and just tell me objectively what you think.
Pete. And Teddy, as you watch the Chiefs play, they remind me of your Patriot teams, which is they never do the things that get you beat. And that is a big part of winning postseason football.
And when you beat teams as often as they do, you get some teams thinking, like Will Anderson said, we are the better team. But then he says we just keep making the same mistakes over and over and over and over. I don't think the Houston Texans understand how to win a football game like this. I think there's just a big difference in class of coaching staffs and in players here, and I recognize it right away. I mean, in terms of the opening kickoff, and then, it was Chris Boyd going absolutely ballistic because he thought he forced a fumble, him pushing his coach. And then the defense, yes, the defense is outstanding. Minus 15 yards from that, and they get the 3 and out. Maybe it's a tougher field goal to make. Those little things, they just don't understand. Will Anderson, you know that's Patrick Mahomes, right? If you give the officials any type of excuse to throw the flag, they will throw the flag. I played with a guy that, he had the same type of carte blanche / Jordan rules that Patrick Mahomes also has, all right? You're gonna get those calls, and you have to know how to win those type of games. To hear D'Amico Ryans afterwards talking about, everybody against us, of course he's talking about the officials. But when you lose a game and you're talking about officials, the Chiefs will just look at that and just understand that you never really understood how to beat us. Because what Patrick said was exactly true. It doesn't matter what the game is. They know how to win the game they're in, not the game that they thought it would be. That's how good the Chiefs are.
Okay.
What do you think about all that? Some of that is
hold on.
Yeah.
Because it's Patrick Mahomes, you can't touch him.
So that pissed me off. I didn't like.
That's
I didn't like that Jordan, that they said, well, we're not fouling Jordan out ever because people come to see him. LeBron gets a separate set of rules.
He's
allowed
to
to
That's another.
Well, I'm just talking about Jordan. David Stern said there's different rules for Jordan. He basically said that. That's bullcrap. LeBron shouldn't get different rules where he's allowed to travel whenever he wants and this, that, and the other. Tom Brady shouldn't get it, and Mahomes shouldn't get it. Call the freaking game. You know what? You know what they don't do? Let me tell you what they don't do in basketball. You know why they always say they let them play at the end? You'd rather have people complaining that fouls weren't called than bad calls, than bad fouls that decide games. Don't be part of the game, refs. Don't make decisions that have an impact on the games if you don't need to. And the refs didn't need to on some of those with the Texans. I thought the Keon Coleman clearly had an offensive pass interference with Buffalo over Tre'Davious White, and it went against the Ravens, and I thought that had an impact on the game. A touchdown was scored. It was a no call. There's plenty of no calls out there to be made. But so that idea from Teddy Bruschi that, hey, you're just too bad. It's like Jordan rules. Pat Mahomes is going to do that. I get that he's talking from a place of you can't use that as you have to know how to beat the Chiefs. Some of the stuff he said in there, I don't think the Texans do know how to win.
No.
And I'm looking at the coaching staff of the Chiefs versus Texans. I mean, he ain't wrong. Andy Reid, Bobby Slowick, and Matt Burke versus Spagnuolo, Nagy, and Reid, blowout.